Do worms have consciousness? We should make a video.
We should make a video. Do worms have consciousness?
Do worms have consciousness? Like,
because they're in the ground.
do they think about the earth that
We
they're
could,
in?
you know, an easy way to answer this is just to look it up and
No, but like, do they think at all? Or are they just eating dirt? And also, do the worms sleep? Do they sleep? I'm not sure if they sleep. It would be interesting if worms slept. Do they just not move? They just look like dead worms?
Yeah, they're kind of just like this.
Do we know? Do we know whether like they're dead or they're asleep? Like, is there a difference between a worm that's dead and asleep? Oh my god, your hair looks so cool right now. Like, look back. Oh my god. No, look back. The way you were. I want you to see that.
Hold on, let me put my other hair back. Okay, do it again.
No, that ruined it. Bro. I'm just like wondering.
I meant inchworm.
What's the difference between an inchworm and an earthworm? Like, when did they evolve?
Inchworms inch, earthworms earth.
Oh. Okay.
It was recording the whole time, so.
I hope that I wish I could post this somewhere, but there's like nowhere to post this because if I were to post it on OnlyFans, it'd be like, this is not sexy at all.
Well, you can't post it anywhere else because you're naked.
Talking about
so
worms.
You're naked, so you have to like.
This is the perfect thing for Twitter.
Okay. Twitter.
Thanks, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk? Me?
Who are you? Now I'm getting shy. He hasn't said anything yet, but we're having a conversation. Do you see yourself? You're silly. Oh my god, he knows exactly what's going on. Are you scared? Oh my god. Hey, that's you. That's... Wow, I was trying to take a peaceful video and you're ruining it. Thanks. Hi, I'm super tired, but I just wanted to have a little chat about my first ayahuasca experience yesterday. So in the beginning, I felt like, oh my god, what is this teaching me? This is just telling me the same things that I know already, which is to love myself and that I only really need myself and that's it. And I had to really let my ego go and remind myself, you know, like I have to let my medicine work and let it do its thing. I have a bunch of mosquito bites on my face, but whatever. Sorry, I got distracted for a sec, but yeah, so I was like, I need to let it do its thing. We need to really just let it happen. And there's a bunch of moments where like I started making jaguar noises and then I started crying on the drum that I had in my lap, and then I started making music with the drum and my tears were being lit up by the candle that I had lit. So I could see my tears just streamlining on the drum and it was being illuminated, and while I was making music, my tears were vibrating, and it was a really interesting experience. And that was the first shot of ayahuasca that I took, and I had revelations that my ex probably never loved me, and that's okay. And I also realized that I probably never loved him, and that's okay. And even though we thought we loved each other, if we loved each other, we would have loved each other how we were, and he would have loved me for who I am, instead of who he wanted me to be. And I would have loved him for who he was and accepted his emotional neglect and abuse instead of hoping that he would get better. Oh, there's a hummingbird, actually. Oh, sweet. A hummingbird is actually one of his spirit animals, so. And I mean, like, I don't love him any less. I just realized that he was probably very incapable, physically incapable of loving me because I remind him of him when he was younger. And that's why he was probably so hard on me throughout near the ending of our relationship, is because when he looks at me, he sees himself and he does not love himself. And I needed to realize, like, the hummingbird is literally right there. Oh my god. Oh, he literally like came to the window to look at me. Oh my god, that's so fucking sweet. He had a black face. But yeah, so you know, and he really needs to love himself, and my reflection is that I fell in love with him to take me away from my freedom, to realize that my freedom is the only asset that I need, and there's no way that I will ever let a man impede my freedom, no matter how much I love them. And there's a lot of clarity there where a lot of times you don't want to let go of people, but most of the time they have to go. And even if you love them or you think you love them, leaving someone that is making you mentally sick is an act of self-love. And I had to accept that he will never be able to love me up until the point that he loves himself. And I need to really like come back to loving the person I was as a free being before I tried to maneuver and change myself into someone who was more tame, or someone who's more quiet, someone who's more what is it called, docile or easy to rule. And I'm just not that person, no matter how much I want to be, just to be easily digestible to people and more easily loved. The fact that I changed myself because he wanted me to be more digestible was the reason why I stopped loving myself. And it was almost like a reminder that my self-love is so important. And instead, like, I always tell myself, oh, I don't need anything from anyone, I love myself. And doing ayahuasca for the first time was almost like solidifying those words. Instead of them just being words and affirmations, they're an actual belief. And there's so much clarity there. And then that was just during the first intake of my first shot. So what I would say is that the first shot helped me open up, help me let go and realize why I was neglected or not treated well, because I changed myself in order to be more digestible for love. And so after having that realization, I went upstairs and I grabbed my journals and I brought them downstairs so that I can write in them. And I came downstairs and it was time for the second shot. So I took my second shot, and there's some things that I'm missing actually in the first shot. I started singing, and in the beginning all I wanted to do was make art. Like dance, like they were asking me like what I started feeling, and I said, oh, I feel the air, and I want to make art. I want to dance, and I want to paint, and I want to draw. And so that's why I started singing, and oh God, my voice was so beautiful. It's like I was able to connect really to my highest self through my voice, and it was a really beautiful moment for me. And I started I know it sounds funny, but I was like really connecting to my inner jaguar, and so that concluded my first shot of ayahuasca. My second shot of ayahuasca, I was writing all of these things down, and I actually wrote my first page in this book. I named it actually yesterday, and I let ayahuasca name it. It's the book, I was gonna name it The Book of Shadows, you can't even see it. The Book of Insight and Integration by Phoenix.Worldwide. So far, that is what my first shot took. My second shot, I took it and I knew I need to go outside. There's no way that I'm gonna be able to stay inside. I need to go outside, and before we started our ceremony, the shaman asked us to stay on the property and not go to the lake. But the fact that he told me not to go to the lake was the exact reason why I went. And I just needed to go. There was no way that I was gonna be able to stay. So I realized even then in that moment that like if someone gives me rule, especially a man, I am likely to break it. Not because I want to cause trouble, but because I am not to be ruled. And I feel deep down that like my power is my own, I have free will. I will tell you after I'm done. You know, and it's not because I want to be rebellious, it's because I have free will and I will do as I please. So as I walk into the jungle, I find that I'm very wild, and and during my first shot actually, it was like almost like knowing who I am and reminding myself of who I am. And I know who I am. I'm a wild woman, I'm an artist, and I create. My will and my power is to create, and my power and my worth is in my freedom. So it's so beautiful to be able to like put that in words of being like, this is who I am, I know who I am, and that's it. That is specifically who I am in a short amount of words. So I was walking in the jungle barefoot, one piece of clothing, which is a shawl that I just like cover. And while I'm in the jungle, I'm like prowling through the shadows, and I find that I love the shadows more than I love the light. I find that I can see more in the shadows than I do the light, not necessarily physically, but energetically, I prefer shadow. And I was kind of like prowling through the darkness and looking at the grass and seeing how it like sprawled out kind of like that, and then I started making my jaguar noises again, and the dogs started getting scared. They were barking at me from afar, and I started to speak to them. I said, "Come to me. If you come to me, you will realize it's me." And they all came to me, all three of them, and they were so excited, and then we all walked to the lake together, and they led the way. We all ran to the lake, and I sat down and I stared at the water, and I thought to myself, oh, I should go get my tent, I should set up my tent, and I should sleep out here because I have a tent that I carry on my back. just everywhere, just in case, like, you know, like if I don't want to get into a hotel. But I'm likely to get into a hotel because hotels are so cheap here. But yeah, so I was just contemplating, and then I started getting hungry, I think. And I was just having inner dialogue, and there was a moment. My shaman warned us that ayahuasca will tend to make you purge if it needs to. So while I was walking, I was having an inner dialogue with myself about sexuality. And I'm just going to be vulnerable for a second. I grew up with a lot of sexual trauma. Like just family molesting me because I was a pretty little girl and I was so innocent and sweet. Like, and it started when I was like 5. So there was like a whole, just throughout my life, there was like sprinklings of sexual abuse. And I mean, I've gone through a lot of abuse actually. And I'm surprised that I'm not worse than I am. So it's like, yeah, I went through a lot of sexual abuse that we're just gonna stay there within that realm. And I told myself sexuality means nothing to me. And that was the moment where I felt it in my stomach. And immediately I started to puke. And I was like, oh God, so gross. And in my head, like, the ayahuasca tells you why it's making you purge. So I was puking and I was like, I'm lying, aren't I? I'm lying. Sexuality means everything to me. And then it immediately stopped. It immediately stopped. And I was like, okay. I know who I am. I know what I want. And what I want is sexual transparency and safety. And that was another moment of clarity for me where I finally knew exactly what I need and want when it comes to sexuality and accepting myself as a sexual being. And like I started thinking of people that I would feel comfortable and feel safe with doing things like that. I wasn't thinking about having sex. I was thinking more so about the safety and creating the environment in a relationship enough to be safe enough to have sex, because I've been having a lot of trouble with sex lately because of like the frivolousness of my past relationship, absolutely disregarding boundaries and sexual health. And like those were huge impacts on my mental health, and I tried my best to accept and be unconditionally loving, and I'm like, we're polyamorous, like I'm trying, like I'm poly, and like I realized that the problem isn't actually with polyamory. The problem is with partners who don't know how to respect boundaries and give a shit about sexual health. And I'm not outing anyone. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being serious and I'm sharing my experience. So the fact of the matter is that has a huge impact on my mental health because of how much sexual trauma I had gone through. And I did communicate that in my past relationship that, hey, you're triggering my trauma and it's really making life difficult for me. And his response was, you're not special because you have trauma. And my it really took me back and made it worse for me mentally, because I wasn't trying to be special about my trauma. I was trying to really save me from blowing up at him and going fucking crazy. And like, because I get violent when you start triggering like my sexual trauma and like my childhood abuse. Holy shit, do I get violent? Do I actually want to kill you? And I'm not going to kill anyone. I'm just being vulnerable, that I genuinely, that it creates so much unsafety for me in my own body that I want to inflict pain. And I was getting sick. My whole body was hurting. Like, having sex with people was painful. It was physically painful. Like, I would get a really deep cramp in my heart where it's like, this fucking sucks. Like, I don't ever want to do this again. And wow, heavy topic, guys. But yeah, I'm doing my fucking best, and I realize that sexuality means a lot to me, and so does sexual transparency and sexual safety. And I kind of moved on from that into like coming back to the home and having a conversation about it with my shaman. And then it was time for the third shot. And at this point, like, people are starting to break out of their silence. People are starting to go into the jungle. People, like, everybody's having their own experience. Some people are hurling and crying. Some people are like, oh my God, this is amazing, having conversation with plants. And then there's me turning into a jaguar, running into the jungle and enjoying the shadows. And it was an amazing experience, my second shot. So it was almost like it went from me knowing exactly who I am to me knowing exactly what I want. And then my third one was also amazing. I took it, I had a conversation with my best friend, and there was a moment where she had said something to me where, like, you know, when you tell someone something and they go, and like, that really triggered me so bad, because it's like, when it was very dismissive. I'm not mad at her. I'm just saying it was dismissive. And I had to go back to my journal and really write down what I felt and how to approach it in a calm way. I wrote down how I want to approach it, and I just wanted to be short and sweet, to the point, done, over with, have a quick conversation, and it's done. So I went up to her after she came back from her walk, and I said, hey, can I have a talk with you? She said, yeah. And I said, I would like to talk about boundaries. And she's like, okay. So I said, and I took a breath, because I didn't want to blow up, because I have a tendency to blow up when I'm offended. But I had already wrote down in my journal not to let people offend me. So I told her, I do not accept being spoken to in a dismissive way. And when you say, and, after I say something, I will not be talked to like that. And I did my best to make it clear, concise, easy, to the point, boundary, and no argument involved. There's no argument. And then she had a moment where she was like, I don't understand, well, when I say and then I said, this isn't an argument. It's just a boundary. And then I walked away, and while I walked away, she said, I love you. And I said, I love you too. So I went back into the jungle, and I sat on a platform, and I cried for a good 20 minutes, and I cried really hard, actually. And that was a trigger for me, and it opened up a whole nother page where I had to face my abandonment issues. And I realized like the reason why I have a problem with setting boundaries is because my mom is a narcissist, and I don't talk to her anymore because of how toxic she is. But so, but whenever I tried to set boundaries with my mom, I would be severely punished with neglect or degradation, humiliating, dismissal. So, and that was another reason why the dismissal, I had to realize like her talking to me in a dismissive way triggers my trauma with my mother. So, and then I had to go and reflect on it, and that like the reason why I had to face it and talk to her about it immediately is because I never, ever, no matter how much I love you, no matter who you are, I will not be talked to like that, ever. So, and it doesn't matter if it's one word. No. The answer is no. I will not be talked to in a dismissive way. It triggers me, it makes me angry. And no one likes me when I'm angry. I am violent and I'm mean. So, I had to nip it in the bud. So I went and I cried, and I realized I miss my mom, and I miss her more than I miss my ex-boyfriend. But even though I miss her, it doesn't mean that I will ever talk to her again. And like that was, it was freeing to validate my own emotions with that. So when I was crying about that, I realized like it's really hard for me to set boundaries, not because I don't want, like I told myself I don't want boundaries, I don't want to set boundaries, but even though I know boundaries are healthy, and the reason why is because like even with my ex, major problem, whenever I would set a boundary like, hey, you're hurting my body, or you're going to hurt my body, or please don't do that, you're hurting me, it would be my fault, and it would they would get very angry. It was almost like a mirror image. My mother and my ex both would get offended at me for creating a boundary, no matter how small. Like, for example, I would tell my ex, hey, please don't walk the horse into me. The horse might have stepped on my foot, which means I wouldn't be able to do all of my athletics. But he got very angry at me and punished me emotionally for setting boundaries. So, and that's the exact same thing my mother would do. She would punish me for setting boundaries. Like another example, when I told my mom I did not want to raise my sister anymore because I had been raising my sister since I was 9 years old, and I was 14 at the time. I had a boyfriend. I was like, you know what I said? I said, if I wanted to have a baby, I would have. If I wanted to have a baby, I would have gotten pregnant at 11. And she got so mad at me that she kicked me out of the house, and I was sleeping outside on the floor without any food for like 2 months. It was really, like, when I say I've gone through trauma, like, yeah, it's there. But, so, anyway, without talking about the past, fuck that, I've already processed that. I was just giving examples. I realized that I really do miss my mom, but it doesn't matter how much I miss her. It's an act of self-love of leaving people who are not good for you. And then I had to face my abandonment issues of why do I feel like I'm afraid of abandonment or afraid of boundaries, is because I feel like people will either leave me or not listen to my boundaries ever, or be very angry at me if I create any boundaries. So I had to face that. I was crying very hard. I was crying about my boyfriend, ex. I was crying about my mom. I was crying about being afraid that my best friend would leave me because I told her not to speak to me in a dismissive way, which is a very silly thing to cry about and like think that your best friend is actually going to leave you because of that. But I have experience with that, so it was a thought, and I had to accept, like, you know, if she leaves me, I will be okay. And if she leaves me, that means she benefited off of me not having boundaries. Anyone who leaves you because you don't have boundaries, or anyone who leaves you because you have a boundary or set a small one, means that they were benefiting from you not having that boundary. And then I came to the realization, I have boundaries for a reason. And that reason is to protect myself and the people around me from the person I am when I am triggered. Because I am a very mean person when I feel threatened. I am a very, very ugly, painful, spiky, poisonous snake when someone shows me that they want to hurt me. And I know that about myself. So I had to be honest with myself that boundaries are not to keep you from having fun. Boundaries are to keep us safe while having fun. I have these boundaries. There's not many, but I have these boundaries to let you know where it's safe to play in my areas. So if you cross this, I'm letting you know there are snakes on that side of the fence. So don't cross it, because if you do, I am responsible for my own feelings, but I'm letting you know that if you step on that snake, it will bite you. And if you don't have anti-venom, you better not step on that snake. I'm being serious. And it's not a threat. It's honesty. I have known myself long enough, and I have met more than enough people who have triggered me to know I am like that. I am not passive. I will bite. I don't want to bite, but if you step on me, that's my defense. So I had to realize, like, boundaries are healthy. If people leave you, those boundaries leave you because of your boundaries. They were benefiting from you not having them. And I gained my composure and I walked back to the house. And I was ready. I was ready for my healing. And those are the things that I learned. Those are the things that I learned during my first ayahuasca. So, to end this video, I actually really like to read my journal entries, even though I'm not even supposed to read my journal because a book told me not to read the past. But I think it's safe to share, because I would really hope that my journey gives some insight to people my age or older, or even my sisters, because my sisters have to deal with the same mother and they're all younger than me, and there's a lot there, you know. It's a new chapter of life. I'm ready to start over. In ayahuasca, I only started to purge when I was lying to myself. The lie was sexuality means nothing to me, and I began to puke. I stopped puking when I said sexuality means everything to me. I began to think about myself and my sexuality. I know who I am and I know what I want. I want sexual safety and transparency. I am a wild woman. I am an animal. I want someone who will love me for who I am. Will let me be free, let me build and grow at my own accord. I found myself and I don't need more medicine. I'm an artist. I'm a free spirit. I'm open and I am happy. I will only love those who let me be free. My worth is more than my looks, more than my sexuality. My worth and power is in my free spirit. Everything else is to keep me entertained. I am happy as a unicorn. I don't need anything from anyone. I'm free. I come with no baggage. I have nothing to go back to. I am free. I love this one. I will never allow a man to control my freedom again. The candle wax drips like the last tears I will cry for a man again. I am free. Let's keep it that way. When a man gives me rules, I will always break them to express my power. I will not be ruled. I will fight, I will bite, I will claw at the cage you wrap around me. I shall not be contained. I'm wild. She does not need rules. My freedom often leads me naked in nature. Have boundaries with myself, not to distract myself from my self-work by talking to others. I refuse to let people talk to me in a dismissive way. I am not meant to be dismissed. Do not go out of your way to be funny or make friends. You need more friends that enable your light. Talk about your boundaries and turn-offs. Do not let others offend you. Talk about your concerns straightforward. People are allowed to be different, and it's okay to let go of people and set boundaries. And basically that is a lot of what I already talked about, but it's in journal form. And then here is the first book. First words of this one. I hope my phone doesn't die. A leopard does not change its spots. The truth is, no one is capable of loving me unless they love themselves. I am not capable of loving others unless they love them. Whoops. I am not capable of loving others unless I love myself. No one dare to get in the way of me to me, or they shall awaken a beast that is better off asleep. The angels sing through my throat as my tears drip on the drum in my lap. My tears vibrate and dance as I make music for my soul. I forgive all those who have burned me, for they do so out of ignorance and their own self-hatred. I do not follow in their footsteps, because a leopard does not change its spots. I am the melody of a song. I am the paint to a brush. I am the flame to a candle. I am the words to poetry. Don't you dare get in the way of me to me. My past does not haunt me, merely thoughts. I am crystal clear, and I am present in my body. Sometimes we wish not to let go of people. Most times, people must go. Be unafraid of the dark. Be unafraid to be alone. Happiness only lives in the present, as does love. Soften your gaze. It is perfectly okay to romanticize yourself. Nature calls. Be wild, woman. I know you are a wild cat. This is why I love you. So that is my first ayahuasca experience. Thank you for watching this video. I have another one tonight and then another one the next day. And I hope that I see you again, and thank God. Thank God for this.